Why didn't Guts use the Berserker Armor against Griffith? Let's talk about that. In Chapter 364 of Berserk, Guts finally came face to face with his mortal enemy, Griffith, the man who he desperately wanted to exact revenge on after the events of the eclipse. The very event in which Griffith accepted his demon form, sacrificed the Band of the Hawk, and raped Casca right in front of Guts. Of course, after the eclipse, Guts saw Griffith on the Hill of Swords, but wasn't able to exact his revenge because Zod intervened. So seeing the Moonlight Boy transform into Griffith was the first time that Guts had to exact his revenge. It was his only chance. There were no obstacles in his way. All he had to do was slice him down. And without hesitation, Guts lunged in and slashed his sword through Griffith's body. Yet, nothing happened. It's as if Griffith was a ghost. He attempted to lop off his head next, but only managed to cut off a single strand of his hair. Guts tried and tried and tried again, but nothing proved to be effective against the seemingly invincible Griffith. Now after this event occurred, Shirka made an interesting observation, noting that Griffith's very being was like a maelstrom, consuming everything around it. Now, this is really interesting, and at the time, I wasn't really sure what to make of it. I don't think anyone really knew what to make of it, but in light of some recent evidence and some pondering on it, I think I know what it finally means. Now, to understand where I'm going with this, it's important to watch my previous videos on the Sword of Actuation, i.e. the Yobimizu no Tsurugi, and the Berserker Armor. But for the purposes of this video, I'll give you a brief recap. Now, Kentaro Miura has frequently used water references to describe the astral realm. In Chapter 237, for example, Shirka mentions that her mistress, Flora, said that the sea must be connected to the astral world. Plus, the Baylets, which come from the astral world, are called, quote-unquote, prime droplets connecting to the beyond. This is based on the Japanese kanji, of course. Now, when Griffith created the maelstrom, it's quite interesting, because a maelstrom is a powerful whirlpool in the sea or a river. But of course, Griffith is not in the sea when creating this maelstrom. So what exactly is he creating this maelstrom out of? Well, if the astral world is connected to the sea, then he's creating the maelstrom out of the astral world. Now, what does this exactly mean? Well, what have I connected to the astral world before? What in the astral world mimics water? It's the Barites. The things that Gedfrin was talking about in Chapter 347. Now, as a refresher, barites are a microscopic substance that give weight to objects. They can cause depression and obsession of the mind. They also darken the sky, something we saw during the eclipse, and something that happens every time a Beylit is activated. Now, I believe what gives apostles and God-hand members their power is the concentration of an unusually large number of barites. So go on a journey with me for a second here. Every human being has dark, negative emotions, the barites, if you will. And during an apostle ceremony, what happens is that a particular person that has a Beylit has a overflowing amount of barites. They're at their peak limit, and the God-hand members give them a choice. Sacrifice their loved ones so that they may attain their demon form. And in so sacrificing their loved ones, those loved ones are transferring over their barites to the new demon apostle, or in the case of the very few, the God-hand members. Hence the reason that the God-hand members need a larger concentration of barites. They need a larger concentration of sacrifices to make their dream a reality. And because of this, because they're composed of more barites than the apostles, they have more control over the barites. This is why they can manipulate matter. This is why they can create distortions in space and time. This is why they can repel people, like Griffith repelled Guts in the Black Swordsman arc. This is why Void manipulated matter so that Skull Knight's attack actually hit himself. And this is how Femto was able to manipulate space so as to cut a hole through Ganishka's face and bring about the Age of Fantasia. So essentially, by manipulating the barites, God-hand members can repel, redirect, and manipulate objects. So in this respect, it's not too far-fetched to believe that they can also absorb barites as well. I mean, if they absorb barites to become a God-hand member, they can invariably absorb more barites to become stronger. In fact, this is what Ganishka did when he became Shiva. Remember, when he went into the man-made Beherit, that was a collection of demon apostles that he was absorbing into his very being. He was absorbing all their berites, all their dark, malevolent energy. And so, it's very possible that the God Hand members can do this for themselves as well. Now, I want to transition a bit here. Now, remember in my previous video when I was talking about the Berserker Armor and how I believe that Hanar infused it with berites. Hence the reason you see these dark shadows engulfing his face prior to the closure of the helmet on his head. So Guts is utilizing the berites to his advantage in the Berserker Armor to become stronger, faster, and not experience pain. However, because berites are composed of the astral realm, he gets one step closer to death every time he wears the Berserker Armor. But of course, as we know, he doesn't really have a choice in the matter of when he wants to activate the armor or not. It's all based on his emotions. It's based on his rage, his fury, his indignation, his deep-seated emotions that are beyond his control. And in chapter 364, Guts became enraged, and the hood of the helmet started creeping up his back like it normally does prior to him being engulfed by the armor itself. So, by all indications, Guts was about to go berserk. However, we never got that climactic moment. How come Koji Mori and Studio Gaga showed the Berserker Armor going up his back, but never consuming him? Never taking control over his senses and his ego? Did they forget? I don't think so. I think this was deliberate. I think they wanted to show this moment for a specific reason. But what was that reason? Well, if the Berserker Armor contains the berites, like I speculated, and Griffith was creating a maelstrom, which is a whirlpool that sucks in anything around it, then I believe he was sucking in the berites from Guts' Berserker Armor. I believe he was preventing Guts from using the Berserker Armor on him. And this would also explain why the sword of actuation at the Yobi Mizuno Tsurugi didn't work on Femto. It's a sword that is covered in Baelits. And Baelits are the activation key that takes one from the physical to the astral realm. They must contain berites at some level, maybe huge concentration of berites. And so to use the very substance that the God Hand members derive their energy from and their power from to defeat them is in vain. It's not going to work. So I think the Berserker Armor is rendered useless against Griffith and the God Hand. If they can absorb his berites, which I believe they can, then what can he do against them? He can't use that armor anymore. He's got to find a different way. And if you guys recall the Falcon of the Millennium Empire arc, the portion of it when Griffith confronted Ganishka, he used a similar wind to blow away Ganishka's apostle form. What I believe he was doing here is he was actually blowing away his berites, the very substance that gave him power, the very substance that gave him his demon form. This is how the God Hand is able to bestow the apostles their demon form. And this is how it looks like they can take it away as well. God giveth, God taketh away. Demonhood giveth, demonhood taketh away. And now that Griffith has all the demons in Falconia, in Pandemonium as it were, he has the perfect opportunity to take away all their berites, possibly to absorb it within himself. Why would he do this? To become the ultimate God Hand member? Quite possibly. He wants to be the strongest person on Earth. It's his goal to attain the kingdom. It's his goal to be the strongest of the strong. I don't think he likes the idea of being on a level playing field with the God Hand. He might want to absorb all those demon apostle berites for himself so he could be top dog. And if he did do this, how would Guts stop him? Especially considering the fact that Griffith might have absorbed all the berites from the Berserker Armor, rendering it useless. How does Guts fight such a being given the circumstances? Does Hanar have another method? Is the Dragon Slayer the source? It did cut a hair on Griffith's body. Maybe it possesses some magical substance. Maybe it has enough berites imbued within the sword itself that it can actually harm demon kind, that it can actually kill apostles and God Hand members. Who knows, guys? But tell me what you guys think of these hypotheses. Tell me what your thoughts are about the berites. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.